Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. As we talked about on the last segment, Matt Olson was on Pardon My Take. We talked about the Freddie situation. We're moving on to something funnier. And we kind of knew this because Josh Tomlin and Tyler Matzik said it. But during the Braves run last year, when Frank the Tank was freaking out, the Braves were chasing the Mets' tail. They said Matt Olson acknowledged it. They were listening after every game in the clubhouse. They knew it was going. They thought it was hilarious. Another thing that I thought was interesting is they saw the Sal Licata, the NL East is over and all that stuff on Memorial Day. And they said that motivated them. So, I think on one hand, if you're Sal Licata, you're like, hey, the players know me. I'm that famous. On the other hand, it's like I'm motivation for the reason why we just had the most embarrassing collapse in maybe MLB history.
I want to correct it. He said, yeah, it motivated them a little bit, but he was also basically like, yeah, we didn't really need any extra motivation, but that was just a cherry on top. And to push back a little bit, he was like, he didn't even know Sal Licata's name. He was like, yeah, that guy that said, like, not only that they don't know your name, Sal Licata, you did motivate them to one of the most epic collapses in sports history. That is just hilarious. And credit to Frank the Tank. Everybody tipped their hat for that guy. I mean, he called it. I know that's his shtick is to be the pessimistic Mets fan. But honestly, like he called it. He called it he was like, it's over. As soon as he got wind of Sal Licata saying the NL East is over, Frank the Tank went on the opposite side. He was like, the NL East is over and the Braves are going to come back and win it. And he said it in maybe epic fashion. He didn't say the Braves were going to, it was going to be the last series of the season practically. But he said something along those lines in the Braves sweep in one of the last series of the season. And it was one of the most epic collapses in sports history.
The thing about it wasn't even really a collapse. Like the Mets played like
I keep saying
the Braves just went and dominated and went on like one of the hottest streaks ever. And
like an 80% win.
It wasn't even necessarily collapse, but
that's fair.
It was a comeback. I mean, and Frank, it's funny because everyone does, say the things about his pessimism, but the guy knows more baseball than probably anybody else on this planet. I mean, you watch him play Immaculate Grid, like he knows every player from everything. Like he knows baseball and he saw what I saw in that the Mets lineup had holes and they didn't go fix them this offseason and they thought they could just run it back. They won with a bunch of dink and dunk and batted balls in play. Like their average was like obscenely high. They got very lucky to win 100 games last year, and then they don't do anything. They let DeGrom walk, and they replace him with Verlander. Is that an upgrade? Yeah, a little bit. Scherzer's 40-year-old. He goes on the decline. That was always a possibility, especially with two 40-year-olds. Singa's been good, but you let Chris Bassett walk, and then they didn't upgrade their hitting at all. And they thought they were going to just run it back and be even better, and that was just delusional, and Frank saw that. And it was a lot worse than I think any of us could have imagined, but Frank is right. Frank is right. Like everything.
I mean, it was this season was catastrophic for the Mets. They just won 100 games. Their fans are feeling great. Uncle Steve's going to spend whatever it takes. They get Verlander. They've been hurt by DeGrom so much that they were probably just so happy to replace him with a Cy Young winner. Verlander was coming off a Cy Young campaign. Edwin Diaz, they gave Edwin Diaz the bag. This was before he got hurt. Mets fans were so excited, and it couldn't have gone worse for them. I mean, like, imagine them before all the injuries, before it started kind of going downhill a little bit, where Mets optimism was just, through the roof. You told those people you're going to end up selling at the deadline. They would be like, no, there's just no way. If you told me that, I would be like, there's no way. We were talking months ago, and I was still like, when the Mets were, I don't know, like 8 games behind the Braves, I was like, the Mets still have guys. Like, they could make a run, and they just – I mean, it's all about that locker room, clubhouse presence, top to bottom. They don't have it. The Braves do. It's that simple. And the guys. I mean, the Braves are just way more talented.
What's even funnier is that like Mets fans have tried to like turn it and be like, this was a successful trade deadline. Yes, we bought some prospects.
I kind of agree with them. I'm sorry. I think, dude, look at everybody else. Look at like the Diamondbacks and like all these.
No, I'm not saying
they made what Yeah,
like
it was good for what it was, but you didn't want to be trading.
I mean, they paid $100 million for a couple top 100 prospects. Like, congratulations, you overpaid for prospects. Like, Uncle Steve could have used that $100 million on an actual good player too. That's actually going to turn it. Because listen, I understand they love all these prospects and they just assume like, oh, we got these guys, they're going to be good. Listen, the Mets, look at their prospects. Every time a guy comes out, they suck. Outside of Francisco Alvarez, every prospect that they've called up has been an absolute dog water. So why do you think you're going to be able to develop these guys? And guess what? You know who knows you know who the scouting director is for the Houston Astros? Dana Brown, who was with the Braves. You know who knows prospects better than anyone? Dana Brown. So if he's trading you prospects for a guy, that guy might not be that good. He might not be as good as you think it is. So we'll see how these guys pan out, but there is nothing if I'm a Mets fan where I would have any, and this is the same thing with Frank. This is what he said. And guess what we're going to be saying about these guys? Frank was right. He's like, these guys that we got are going to suck. And I wouldn't be shocked if in 3 or 4 years, we're like, yeah, these guys aren't that good. Now I hope Acuna's brother's good just because we have Ronald. Like I want brotherly, but just as long as he sucks against the Braves, I don't care.
If I was a Mets fan, I would be sick of Frank. I don't care if he's right. The pessimism. Listen, I try and keep it as real as possible. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I'll call a spade a spade. Hawks are terribly run. The Falcons have been a joke. Yada yada yada. If I was a Mets fan, I would not put up with it. I can understand why Mets fans hate Frank. Like just constant badgering.
Oh, I understand why they hate him.
Constant badgering.
Just turns out to be right every time.
Yeah, that was the worst thing that happened.
They're a joke of an organization. Like it really is just what it is. Coming up after the break, we're going to wrap up the show. Matt Olson talks about his favorite home run of his career, and it was a special one against the team we're just talking about.